The question is that the bicycle never contaminates, it's more healthy, and for short distances, it's very practical.
But if you have to move 20 kilometers a day, back and forth, 40 kilometers a day in a Chinese bicycle, no gears, all steel, after 5 years, you hate it. And that's what happened in Cuba. Like at some point when there are a little bit more camels and buses, people just quit because they were sick of it.
One day, people start thinking about the end of the car. There will be an era, a moment in the life. So one day, the car appeared, and one day the car will disappear. The car will be something that we will remember as a moment in the development of the mankind.
Since the special period began, it's been difficult to build new housing because of a scarcity of tools and materials.
Cement production requires a lot of fuel, and that's why the cement production has been reduced.
Everyone in Cuba has a place to live, and 85% of the people own their own home. But most houses are small and simple with few amenities. In the countryside, that means a small house with a living room, kitchen, and 2 or 3 bedrooms. Rural housing has the advantage of more open space, where people can grow vegetables and fruit and raise livestock.
Todo lo que vamos a almorzar ahora es de nuestro huerto, menos el arroz, los frijoles, el cerdo, las lechugas, todos nosotros lo sembramos y criamos en nuestro huerto.
In Havana, if you don't live in one of the old single-family homes, it may mean living in a dilapidated building or with your relatives in a crowded apartment. Even so, the city is a place many people want to live.
Havana already has the values that many urban planners and architects in the world would like to recover. Many people have come and said, you should preserve the city we want to recover. After the big sprawl, many people are looking back to the traditional city and looking the ways to live in the traditional city in a more human way.
But living in a city without adequate transportation causes major difficulties.
They have to come and go, they have to commute, and they have to spend time in looking for a transportation between the city and the neighborhoods.
To reduce the long commutes, new mixed-use developments include schools, places to work, and places for recreation within walking and biking distance of people's homes.
Everybody must use the same space. So design provides a common space for everybody. This is a way to keep your community alive.
At the start of the special period, 95% of Cubans were connected to the national electric grid. The other 5% lived in remote areas. Photovoltaic and wind energy are too expensive to meet much of Cuba's energy needs. But for areas not connected to the grid, small-scale wind and hydro systems, as well as solar panels, are used. Priority is given to schools and clinics.
Recently, more than 2,000 rural schools were supplied with solar panels to have electricity. It was less costly to give them the solar panels rather than to connect them to the grid.
In Los Tumbos, solar panels power the school, clinic, community center, even people's homes.
They have the panels up on the roof, and they're recharging the light battery right now with compact fluorescence. They can put this radio on, and this is another panel. That's her son's, who lives right there.
Small solutions have been developed throughout Cuba, such as using the sun to preheat water.
People in Cuba used to shower with heat water. So they use traditional oil or energy, whatever they have, to heat water. So if we can have solar heaters, it's better.
But when you obtain the water from the solar heater, it is 60 degrees. You can save the half of the fuel you use to heat the water to boil.
Before the crisis, Cuba relied on imported fuel oil to generate electricity. Without this, they had to modify their power plants to burn their poor quality domestic crude oil.
Our crude oil is very a bad thing for environment, but we had no choice. It's a matter of live or die.
They also began using crop waste to generate electricity.
Sugar mills have been turned in power plants because you mill the sugar and then you have the bagasse. You burn the fibers, you produce heat, and then you produce electricity. So you can turn a sugar mill during the season or after the season into an additional power plant.
And right now in Cuba, during the time of harvest, which is about 3 or 4 months during the year, 30% of the energy that's generated in Cuba comes from the renewable source of biomass.
So this is what we call the energetic sovereignty. We do not depend on all imports to produce electricity. The problem is what the people said about Cuba in the States is not what we are doing here. Many people there think how they can survive if they don't have anything. Okay, come here and you can see how we can survive. And in this way we can begin to understand each other and to know how to think. Mankind is burning in 1 century all the oil accumulated by nature during millions of years. And that is absurd, completely absurd. I don't see that countries who depend largely on imported oil are thinking about alternative sources of energy. They are just planning for the next week. If I'm in Cuba, I say, people, we have problems. We must turn off all the lights that we are not using. And everybody said, okay, we are going to turn off. But if I say in the United States, people, we must turn off all the lights because we need, everybody say, why, if I pay? The problem is we must change how we think.
You know, the idea of peak oil is that things are going to change and there's going to be less. I think Cubans understand that on an international, global level because island people have that innate sense of a limited resource. And also they realize in terms of energy, if they want to be politically independent, they had to be economically independent. To be economically independent, you have to be energy independent.
Is oil going to last in the next 10 to 15 years? Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe in Cuba we find an enormous oil tank underground for 50 years more. Oh, wonderful. We have 50 years more. But the security of supply is getting more risky day by day.
And there is also this hope to find in the deep waters of the Mexican Gulf good petrol. But people don't think about that as an asset. No, we're going to improve their life here. No, no, we're going to sell it, you know, because people know that we don't need that to live. You know what I mean? Okay, we need money to develop, but it's like something to sell, not something to use or to waste.
The sun was able to maintain the life in Earth during millions of years. Only the problem is now when we arrived and we change the way we use the energy. The problem is if the sun has been enough to sustain the life and now we cannot sustain